Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Roots of Islam channel. In one of the most technologically advanced and culturally homogeneous nations on earth, more than 200,000 Muslims now live in South Korea, and thousands of ethnic Koreans are quietly embracing Islam. This is a country where less than 1% of the population identifies as Muslim. It is the global home of K-pop, K-dramas, and neon-lit megacities. And yet, hidden between skyscrapers in Seoul and university dormitories in Busan, young Koreans are reciting the Shahada. How is Islam taking root in a society long shaped by Buddhism, Confucian ethics, and Christianity? By the end of this video, you will discover how a war in 1950 planted the first Islamic seeds in Korea, how the number of mosques multiplied from 1 to more than 20, and why a growing number of Korean men and women are choosing Islam despite social pressure. At the 8-minute mark, you will hear the story of a university student whose quiet conversion shocked her entire family. To understand this unexpected transformation, we must rewind to a very different Korea. To grasp what is happening today, we must rewind to 1950, when the Korean peninsula was engulfed in war. Before Islam arrived in any organized form, South Korea's religious landscape was dominated by Buddhism and Christianity, alongside a deep Confucian social framework. By 1960, roughly 20% of South Koreans identified as Christian, while a significant portion practiced Buddhism or no formal religion. Islam's formal entry began during the Korean War between 1950 and 1953, when Turkish troops arrived under the United Nations command. Approximately 15,000 Turkish soldiers were deployed. Alongside military operations, they established a makeshift prayer tent near Busan. This was the first organized Islamic worship space in modern Korea. Some Korean civilians who worked with Turkish troops were introduced to Islam. In 1955, around 57 Koreans reportedly embraced Islam, forming the nucleus of the first local Muslim community. In 1967, the Korea Muslim Federation was officially established, creating institutional structure. 3 years later, in 1976, the Seoul Central Mosque was completed in Itaewon, a district that would become synonymous with Islam in Korea. Funded partly by donations from Middle Eastern countries, it stood as the only mosque in the nation for years. At that time, the Muslim population was estimated at fewer than 5,000 people. However, the 1970s and 1980s brought rapid industrialization. As South Korea expanded diplomatic and economic ties with the Middle East, labor exchanges increased. Korean construction companies sent tens of thousands of workers to Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. Some returned home with new religious awareness. Meanwhile, international students from Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Bangladesh began enrolling in Korean universities, especially in Seoul and Daejeon. By the early 1990s, the Muslim population had grown to an estimated 40,000, largely due to foreign residents. Yet ethnic Korean Muslims remained a small minority. It seemed modest, quiet, marginal. But this trickle would soon become a steady current. But the real explosion was yet to come, and it arrived in a way no one predicted. In just 2 decades, South Korea's Muslim population surged from approximately 40,000 in the 1990s to over 200,000 by the early 2020s, according to estimates from the Korea Muslim Federation and migration data. Of these, roughly 35,000 to 45,000 are believed to be ethnic Korean converts. Census figures are difficult because South Korea does not conduct mandatory religious registration, but immigration data reveals steady growth in residents from Muslim-majority countries, particularly Indonesia, Uzbekistan, and Pakistan. Seoul remains the epicenter. The Seoul Central Mosque in Itaewon, completed in 1976, now hosts more than 3,000 worshippers during major Eid prayers. On Fridays, the narrow streets around Usadan Row fill with Arabic, Korean, and Bahasa conversations. Additional mosques have been established in Busan, Daegu, Gwangju, Jeonju, and Ansan. As of 2023, There are over 20 registered mosques and more than 100 prayer rooms nationwide. Ansan, home to a large foreign worker population, hosts one of the most vibrant Muslim districts. Halal supermarkets, Indonesian restaurants, and modest fashion boutiques line Wonggok Dong streets. Institutional infrastructure has expanded. The Korea Muslim Federation oversees halal certification, which has grown significantly since 2015. According to government trade reports, halal food exports from South Korea increased by over 50% between 2015 and 2020, as the government sought to attract Muslim tourists. Universities such as Seoul National University and Korea University now provide designated prayer rooms. In 2019, over 1,000 Muslim students were enrolled in Korean universities, according to Education Ministry figures. Stay tuned. In just 4 more minutes, I will reveal how daily life inside this minority community is quietly transforming Korean society. While these institutions were sprouting, daily life for Muslims was transforming in ways both beautiful and challenging. While mosques were rising, something even more profound was happening in the private lives of ordinary Muslims. Imagine waking before dawn in a small Seoul apartment, the distant hum of traffic blending with the soft vibration of a prayer alarm app. There is no public adhan. Prayer is discreet, quiet, personal. For Korean Muslims, daily life often unfolds invisibly. In Itaewon during Ramadan, however, the atmosphere shifts. Lanterns hang outside halal restaurants. The scent of lamb kebabs and kimchi mingles in evening air. In 2022, more than 5,000 worshippers attended Eid al-Fitr prayers at Seoul Central Mosque. Halal access has expanded. Major supermarket chains such as Lotte Mart introduced limited halal-certified sections after 2016. In Itaewon, over 200 halal restaurants operate within walking distance of the mosque. Muslim children face unique experiences. In public schools, dietary restrictions sometimes require advanced communication. Some parents report initial confusion from teachers unfamiliar with fasting practices. Workplace integration presents subtle challenges. A 2018 survey by a Korean Human Rights Institute found that approximately 30% of Muslim respondents experience misunderstanding or bias related to dress or prayer breaks. Yet interfaith dialogue initiatives have grown. Seoul's metropolitan government has sponsored cultural exchange events since 2015 to promote religious diversity awareness, and quietly, beneath this surface of accommodation, something even more profound was happening. But some of the most remarkable Muslims in South Korea were not born into the faith at all. Now, here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Some of the most devoted Muslims weren't born into the faith, they discovered it on their own. In 2017, 22-year-old Kim Min-ji, a university student in Busan, began researching Islam for a sociology assignment. What began as academic curiosity evolved into spiritual exploration. She visited the Busan Al-Fatah Mosque, initially just to observe. She returned the next week, and the week after. In 2018, she quietly recited the Shahada in a small prayer room, surrounded by 5 women who welcomed her with tears and embraces. Her family reacted with confusion. For months, she kept her faith private. Eventually, through patient conversation, tensions eased. Another case is Park Ji-hoon, a former Christian from Daegu, who converted in 2015 after interacting with Muslim friends during military service. He described Islam's discipline and clarity as structurally comforting. His transformation included dietary change, daily prayer, and Arabic study. Estimates suggest that between 500 and 1,000 Koreans may convert annually, though exact numbers are uncertain. Support networks have expanded. Convert study circles meet weekly in Itaewon and Busan. Online platforms in Korean provide Quran translation and educational content. These stories are deeply personal, emotional, courageous. Yet these stories of growth and acceptance did not unfold without resistance. But this growth didn't come without fierce opposition, and what happened next would test the community's resolve. In 2021, protests erupted in Daegu against the construction of a new mosque near Kyungpook National University. Approximately 200 local residents signed petitions opposing it, citing concerns about noise and property values. Political figures from conservative parties occasionally express caution regarding Islamic visibility. Debates over halal slaughter and mosque zoning have surfaced periodically since 2016. Media stereotypes sometimes amplify global fears unrelated to Korea's domestic reality, yet resilience has defined the community's response. In Daegu, Muslim students continued fundraising and legal efforts. Interfaith clergy publicly supported religious freedom. Despite these headwinds, the trajectory remains unmistakable. Looking ahead, demographic analysts project that South Korea's foreign Muslim population will continue to grow steadily due to labor migration and international marriages. Even conservative projections suggest the Muslim population could reach 300,000 within the next decade. Youth leadership is emerging. Korean-born imams, fluent in Hangul and Arabic, bridge cultural divides. Islamic content creators on Korean social media platforms have amassed tens of thousands of followers. What began with 57 converts in the 1950s has evolved into a community numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Remember that shocking statistic from the beginning: over 200,000 Muslims in a nation where Islam was once unknown. That transformation did not happen overnight. It unfolded through war, diplomacy, migration, curiosity, and conviction. These roots, planted decades ago in a simple wartime prayer tent, now run too deep to ever be pulled out. The mosques that stand in Itaewon and Busan, the Korean names written alongside Arabic ones, the children navigating dual identities, they are no longer foreign transplants but native growth. What began as a whisper of Adhan in a foreign land has become a quiet symphony, one that will echo for generations